When I was 14 years old, still living in Saigon, something changed that I didn't fully understand at the time. My father was suddenly transferred to another province for official duty. The assignment would last about 2 years. On the surface, it looked like a normal relocation, but looking back, it felt like the beginning of something we were not prepared for. My parents made a decision quickly. They didn't sell our house in Saigon, they kept it. Instead, we rented a temporary house in a small province. It sounded simple, temporary, safe, but nothing about that place felt familiar, and nothing about finding it felt normal either. At that time, rental houses in big cities still existed, but not many. In small provinces, they were almost impossible to find. My parents had 7 children, so we needed space, a lot of it. But every option we found fell apart. Too small, too old, too expensive, or not available at all. It started to feel like we weren't choosing a house. We were waiting for something to accept us. Then, through local police assistance, we were introduced to a French-style villa. It was presented as ideal, and when we arrived, it looked perfect at first glance. Wide front yard, old jackfruit tree in the center, space for 4 cars, long side paths leading to the back garden. Everything looked right, almost to right. But that wasn't the strange part. Not yet. The back garden was where we spent most of our time. Fruit trees everywhere, ripe papayas hanging low, sugarcane lined up like a fence, and a custard apple section where the fruits were unusually large. It should have felt safe, but the quietness there didn't match how alive everything looked. Something about it felt delayed, like the house was reacting slower, and it should. My mother later explained the rental arrangement. The landlord gave us the entire house, including the garden, but she kept one divan bed in the living room. She said she would return 3 to 4 days a week because she still had another garden about 1 kilometer away. She also kept the altar cabinet covered with a curtain, and told my mother not to worry about it. But she never explained why it had to stay covered, and we didn't ask. When we first moved in, everyone felt the same thing, open, airy, comfortable, until my eldest sister said, "Why does this house feel so cold?" My mother explained it. For doors, open structure, wind from every direction. I said it felt fine, even cool. But my sister tapped my head and said, "It's not cool, it's freezing. You'll understand later." That last sentence stayed longer than anything else. That night, nothing changed in the house, but something in the feeling of it did. The air felt wider than it should have been. The rooms felt placed instead of built. And even the silence felt structured, like it had boundaries, like it knew where it was allowed to exist. The house layout was simple, main entrance in the center, right side, a divan bed belonging to the landlady near a window facing the yard across from it, a large altar cabinet against the wall, always covered with a curtain, left side, sofa set and display cabinet. Behind the living room were my parents' room and my younger sister's room, directly behind the altar wall. Further inside, to empty rooms on both sides. My older sister only came on moving day. At the very back was the largest section of the house. From the front, a wide side door looked out toward the neighbor's garden. Right next to it was a divan bed, and I chose that place to sleep. not because it made sense, but because it felt like the only place that didn't resist me, and that should have been the end of it. A normal move, a temporary house, nothing more. But I only realized something was wrong after we had already been living there for a while, because that covered altar cabinet didn't stay still the way it should have, not even when no one was looking. At first, I didn't know how to interpret it. The statement didn't sound like something obvious. There was no clear movement, no clear event, just a feeling that something in that house was not remaining the way it was supposed to, and the longer I stayed there, the more I started noticing small things. Not changes you could easily explain, more like inconsistencies. Things that felt slightly off from how they should have been, but the strange part was, no one else reacted to it, or if they did, they didn't mention it. That silence made everything worse, because it meant I had no confirmation that what I was noticing was even real. Still, the feeling didn't disappear. It stayed in the background of everything we did. Quiet, constant, like the house was slowly adjusting to something, but never fully settling into place. And that was when I began to understand something I couldn't explain at the time. It didn't feel like we had simply moved into a house. It felt like we had entered a space without ever noticing the exact moment we crossed into it. And once that thought appeared, I couldn't get rid of it. While sitting down to eat, I noticed Aunt Nam standing in the kitchen again. She was still wearing that same white traditional outfit, and again she had her back turned toward our table. Suddenly I asked her why she was awake so early last night. She turned around and answered calmly that she hadn't woken up at all, that she had been sleeping straight through until morning. I felt embarrassed, but I insisted I wasn't dreaming. I told her that at around 2 a.m., when I went to get water for my brothers, I clearly saw her standing by the kitchen in that same white outfit. I even called out to her, but she didn't answer. At that moment she just stared at me silently, then laughed lightly and said maybe I was half asleep or dreaming, and she needed to go to the fields early. After she left, my mother sat next to me and asked again if I was completely sure about what I saw at 2 a.m. I repeated everything. The exact time, the white outfit, the figure standing in the kitchen. My mother went silent for a moment, then stood up and brought a sealed can of powdered milk. She explained that it was tightly closed and even if filled with water, wouldn't spill easily, even when placed on its side. Then she told me that from now on she would prepare the cans of water before we slept, so I could keep them near the bed and wouldn't need to walk to the kitchen night if my brothers got thirsty. I agreed without thinking much. That night she filled both cans with water and placed them beside my bed, pressing the pillows so they wouldn't roll away. But around midnight I woke up again. My younger brother was shaking me, saying he was thirsty. I opened my eyes inside the mosquito net, and only the dim old lamp light near the water table was visible. Instinctively, I reached for the cans near my pillow, but then I remembered my mother's instructions. Still half asleep, I sat up and looked at the clock. It was exactly 2 a.m., and then I turned toward the kitchen again. The same white figure was there, standing in the distance. This time my heart jumped immediately. I couldn't stay silent anymore and called out louder, trying to confirm what I was seeing. I said I saw her clearly the night before, standing in the kitchen. I waited for a response, but there was nothing. The figure slowly turned its head toward me for a moment, then walked away into the darkness and disappeared. The next morning, all three of us slept unusually deep, and we didn't hear the alarm until my mother woke us up. At breakfast, I asked Aunt Nam again, about 2 a.m., but her reaction changed completely this time. She dropped her chopsticks onto the floor and said I was talking nonsense, then quickly left the house, saying she had work in the fields. After she left, my mother looked at me very seriously and told me to finish my milk and follow her upstairs because she needed to show me something. In her room, she pointed to a small table beside her bed filled with baby supplies like bottles, hot water flask, and powdered milk for my infant sister. Then she spoke quietly, saying that since the day we moved in, my father had only slept at home for one night before leaving again for work. The next morning, when she stepped outside, neighbors immediately gathered around her and told her something she was not prepared for. They said this house had a reputation, that strange things had always happened here, and that people in the area avoided it whenever possible. They warned her especially because she had a newborn baby in the house, saying she should leave immediately. But my mother never told us any of this at the time because I was the only older child in the house, and she didn't want to scare me any more than I already was. My mother looked at me seriously and told me that what I saw at night was not at Nam. She said the house had a rule now, that I must not leave the mosquito net at night anymore. She explained that the place I thought I saw at Nam standing in the kitchen was not at Nam at all. It was the spirit of someone else. Someone who had already died in this house before we moved in. I froze when I heard that. I asked my mother who she was talking about, because I had never heard of any other woman living in this house before. My mother didn't answer right away. Instead, she held my hand tightly and led me out into the living room. She walked me straight to the altar cabinet where the covered shrine was placed. Then she slowly lifted the white curtain that was covering it. Inside the altar was a framed portrait of a woman. The moment I saw it, my body went still. The face in the photo looked exactly like Aunt Nam, the same white traditional outfit, the same hairstyle, the same expression. I couldn't tell the difference at all. I just stood there in silence, trying to process what I was seeing, while my mother watched me carefully. Then my mother finally spoke again. She said that the person in the altar photo was not at Nam, it was at Tu, at Nam's older sister. She said the two of them looked almost identical, like twins. But then she added something that made everything feel colder. She said that the neighbors had told her Aunt Tu had died inside this house only 6 months before we moved in, and that people believed she was killed by something unnatural. When my mother said Aunt Tu had been killed by a ghost, my mind went somewhere completely different. I suddenly remembered a judo move I learned when I was 10. It uses your hip and shoulder to throw someone over your back. It's called seonage, and for some reason, I imagined Aunt Tu being thrown by a ghost. It sounded so ridiculous in my head that I just laughed. My mother didn't understand my reaction. She thought I was laughing at her story. Her expression changed right away. She tapped my forehead and told me this wasn't something to joke about. She said this house was haunted, and she wasn't saying it to scare me. She warned me again, don't leave your bed at night. or I might see something I could never forget. Then she told me this place used to be a maternity home where women came to give birth. She said Aunt T.U. was the owner of the house and also the midwife who delivered babies here over the years. Many mothers and newborns died inside this place, some during childbirth, some right after. The neighbors believed it was because of mistakes during delivery, and they said the spirits of the dead never left. Then she added something worse. 6 months before we moved in, Aunt T.U. herself died here. People said it wasn't normal. They said it was something supernatural. I asked my mother if she really believed a ghost could kill a person. She shook her head. She said she didn't know, but she believed what I saw at night was not Aunt Nam. It was the spirit of Aunt T.U. I tried to explain again about Aunt Nam denying it at first, but my mother lowered her voice. She said I missed something important. At first, Aunt Nam said she never woke up. Then she changed her story later. My mother said that didn't feel normal. It felt like she was hiding something, so we wouldn't leave. She also told me something else. According to the neighbors, people never stayed in this house for more than a week. They always moved out quickly. My mother said Aunt Nam probably needed us to stay because having people here made her feel less afraid. That's why she gave us full access to the fruit garden. It wasn't just kindness, it was a way to keep us from leaving. I asked again if what I saw was really Aunt T.U. My mother looked worried and told me again, don't get out of bed at night. The next day at school, I kept thinking about everything. That figure in the kitchen kept coming back to my mind. My mother said it wasn't Aunt Nam, it was Aunt T.U., but what confused me was, it didn't feel scary in my memory. No blood, no monster face. Nothing like the horror stories I knew, just a normal person standing there. And somehow, that made it harder to explain. I also remembered what my neighbor Tyan asked me, if I had seen any ghosts yet. I wanted to ask her more, but I didn't dare at school. If a boy and girl talked alone back then, everyone would tease them, so I stayed quiet. I almost went to her during break, but I stopped. Then class started, and I pushed the thought away. That night, my mother gave me the water cans again, and she reminded me not to leave the mosquito net. I lay there, but I couldn't stop thinking about that figure at 2 a.m. I still didn't know what to call it. I wasn't sure if it was Aunt Nam or Aunt T.U., so in my mind, I just called it something else, a strange presence in the dark. Before sleeping, I took a small oil lamp and walked around the kitchen. I checked everything carefully, but nothing felt wrong, nothing moved. Everything looked normal, so I went back to bed thinking maybe I was just imagining things. And then, in the middle of the night, I was asleep, dreaming I was playing football at Thong Nhat Stadium in Saigon, when my 2 younger brothers woke me up again. They were shaking me gently, saying they were thirsty, and asking me to get them water. First, I sat up and gave my younger brothers the water so they could drink. After that, I slowly looked toward the kitchen. It was completely dark. I couldn't see anyone clearly, but I wanted to get closer, so I quietly told my brothers that for the past 2 nights they had woken up exactly at 2 a.m., and I wanted to check the clock again. I stepped down quietly and walked toward the small table where the clock was placed. I looked at it, and it was exactly 2 a.m. again. At that moment, I felt a slight chill run through my body. I pretended to lift the clock closer to my eyes, but in reality, I was secretly looking toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw it again, the landlady at Nam sitting with her back turned toward me. She was wearing her usual white outfit, with her hair tied in a bun at the back. At first I felt less afraid, but I told myself to be careful. I gently placed the clock back down, turned around, and walked back to the bed as naturally as I could. I climbed into the mosquito net and quietly signaled my brothers to stay silent. All three of us lay down and pulled the blanket up to our necks. We rested our elbows on the pillow and supported our chins with our hands, trying to stay alert. I whispered to them that if anything happened, we should hide under the blanket. My younger brothers nodded without really understanding. I pointed toward the strange figure still sitting near the kitchen area and whispered to my older brother Chi Siang, asking if he could see Aunt Nam sitting there. He said yes. Then I asked my younger brother Long. He also said yes. That Aunt Nam was sitting near the water area. At that moment, I started thinking again, for 2 nights already. I had seen this same figure that looked like Aunt Nam, but my mother said it was actually Aunt Tu. I wondered if I should try calling it. So slowly, I pulled the blanket higher, covering my head, and gathered my courage to speak. I called out, asking, "Aunt Tu, are you the one who came back as a spirit?" The moment I said that, the strange figure suddenly stood up. Its white obaba stretched tall in the darkness. It slowly turned its body toward us. I widened my eyes, trying to see clearly if there was anything unnatural. What I saw still stays in my memory. It was Aunt Nam's face, seen from the side, but her eyes looked sharp and angry. She lowered her head slightly, then adjusted her posture as if trying to look directly at us. Then something strange happened. She raised her shoulders, tilted her head, and started moving sideways toward us, not walking normally, but sliding step by step like a crab. Every movement felt unnatural, and with each step, she seemed to grow taller, higher than before. At first, we didn't realize it. We were too focused on watching her face. But as she came closer, we slowly tilted our heads upward without noticing. It felt like she was growing taller right in front of us, until her head was higher than the top of the mosquito net. That's when I finally screamed that it really was Aunt Tu's ghost, and that she had grown taller than the net itself. The moment I shouted, the mosquito net suddenly collapsed over us, and everything went dark. It felt like we fainted all at once. We didn't even have time to hide under the blanket. We didn't hear the alarm clock in the morning at all. When my mother walked into the kitchen, she saw the broken mosquito net and screamed in panic. She rushed over and pulled it up, only to find all three of us still sleeping soundly. She shouted at us to wake up quickly, or we would be late for school. We rubbed our eyes and got up, brushing our teeth and washing our faces. At the breakfast table, Aunt Nam had already left early for the fields. That's when my mother asked if the boys had woken up at night asking for water, and what we were doing that caused the mosquito net to tear completely. Before I could answer, my 2 younger brothers quickly interrupted. They said the net broke because Aunt Tu's spirit came back and pulled it down. My mother's face immediately turned pale. She asked what they meant by Aunt Tu and who told them that. Both of them pointed toward the water area and said they clearly saw Aunt TU sitting there last night. They said I called out to her, asking if she was really Aunt TU's spirit, and they claimed she got angry and walked toward the bed and tore the net down. At that moment, my mother slapped me and shouted that I should not have provoked the spirit of Aunt TU. When my mother slapped me, I had never really been punished like that before. My father used to discipline me lightly with a feather broom when I was younger, but my mother almost never hit me. So when it happened, I knew she was truly angry. I rubbed my face and quickly tried to calm her down, telling her that I saw Aunt TU's spirit, but it didn't feel scary at all. I even said I was just joking with her. My mother looked surprised and asked how I could say that, since the mosquito net had been torn down all at once. I could tell she was calming down, so I made up a story saying that when the net fell, I saw Aunt TU smiling at me. I even tried to imitate a silly smile to make her laugh. My mother actually laughed a little, and when she laughed, her anger disappeared. She told me to stop talking nonsense and eat quickly so we wouldn't be late for school. I thought everything was over, but that night, things became even stranger. When she gave me the Guigo's milk cans with water, she also gave me 3 knives with red crosses drawn on them. She told us to place them under our pillows to keep the spirits away. She said someone taught her to draw a cross using beetle lime on the blade so ghosts would be afraid. She told each of us to keep 1 knife under our pillow and also place the alarm clock inside the mosquito net so we would wake up properly. For the first time, we felt like we were being equipped to fight something we didn't fully understand. That night I fell asleep deeply, but again, my younger brothers woke me up. I thought they wanted water again, so I reached for it, but Chi Sieng pointed toward the kitchen area. I looked carefully and saw the same white figure sitting with its back turned. The clock showed exactly 2 a.m. again, glowing in the dark. We immediately prepared ourselves like before, lying flat and pulling the blanket up to our necks, ready to hide. We stayed silent for several minutes, watching the figure. It didn't move, it just sat there in the darkness. I started to lose patience and finally called out, asking if Aunt TU had returned again as a spirit that night. The moment I spoke, the figure suddenly stood up. It turned toward us, just like the previous night. It tilted its body strangely, lowering its head and shifting its shoulders, then began moving sideways toward us in that unnatural crab-like walk. It was slow, steady, and silent, getting closer step by step. In the darkness, I could only see the white Obaba and part of a pale face. I tried to observe carefully to see what a ghost really looked like, but it kept its head down, shoulders raised, and I still couldn't see its mouth clearly. I looked for fangs or anything terrifying, but there was nothing like that, only its sharp, angry eyes staring at us. Even though it was strange, I didn't feel as scared as I expected. It felt more unusual than frightening. It slowly moved closer to the bed. We stretched our necks upward to look at it, and I realized again how tall it seemed compared to the mosquito net. It felt like it was rising higher as it approached. At that moment, I remembered how I had been joking with my mother earlier in the morning. So even though it was right in front of us, I gathered the courage and asked the figure softly, calling out, "Aunt TU, please stop staring at me like that. Can you smile for me?" As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly saw at Nam's eyes flash with a strange red glow. Even now I still can't tell if it was coming from her eyes or just a reflection from the old lamp light on the water table behind us. But in that moment, it looked real, sharp, alive, wrong. Then suddenly the mosquito net snapped and dropped down in one sudden collapse, and darkness fell over us like a heavy curtain. And just like that, all three of us blacked out at the same time. It felt like we fell straight into sleep. No fear, no reaction, no time to even process what had happened. It was too fast, too sudden, like something had just switched us off completely. But the person who was the most terrified was my mother. The next morning, my mother walked from the upper house down to the kitchen area. The moment she reached the doorway, she froze. On the ground were the 3 knives she had given us the night before, the ones we were supposed to keep under our pillows. Now they were lying scattered right across the entrance, as if someone had deliberately thrown them out. She didn't dare step over them. She just looked toward the bed from a distance, about 5 meters away, and saw that the mosquito net was torn again, all 4 strings broken. She panicked immediately and screamed for Aunt Nam to come over. Her voice was shaking, almost out of control. When Aunt Nam arrived, both of them carefully stepped over the doorway and came to wake us up. My mother asked urgently if we had seen anything during the night. Because the nets had torn again, I told her it was the same as before. Aunt Two's spirit appeared again, slowly rising higher and higher, and when it reached the bed, the net suddenly snapped down. My mother turned to Aunt Nam and said that ever since we moved into this house, her son had seen Aunt Tu appear in the kitchen area every night. 2 nights in a row, the spirit had torn the mosquito net. She also said she had told us to place the knives under our pillows, but now they had been moved outside to the doorway, as if something had deliberately removed them. My mother asked Aunt Nam directly if it was true that Aunt Tu had died in this house and kept appearing after death. Aunt Nam's face immediately turned pale. She stuttered and denied everything, saying she had never seen anything like that. Then she quickly said she had to leave for the fields because she had work waiting for her. Without another word, she turned around and walked away quickly. My mother stood there, clearly angry and shaken. She told us to wash up, eat breakfast, and get ready for school immediately. Then she said she would try to contact my father and ask him to come home as soon as possible. Back then, my family lived under a strict daily routine. My parents enforced it without exceptions. At 6 a.m. sharp, the alarm would go off, and we had to wake up immediately. Breakfast was fast, almost automatic, then school. At exactly 12 p.m. we came home for lunch. After eating, only a short 30-minute nap, nothing more, no flexibility. It felt like we were inside something that never allowed mistakes. From afternoon until 6 p.m. we were allowed to play, but even that never felt fully free. At exactly 6 p.m. dinner, no delay. After dinner, rest briefly, then straight to studying, no excuses, no skipping. And at 9 p.m. sharp, everything shut down. Lights out every day, the same cycle, and honestly, It felt like the house itself was enforcing rules we couldn't see. That afternoon, right after I got home from school, my mother called me over. Her voice was calm, but something about it felt different, almost relieved. She told me she had finally spoken with my father. He was still busy and wouldn't be coming home for a few more days. But then her tone shifted. She said the nights in this house felt wrong. Outside, it was completely dark. No lights, no movement. Just silence stretching too far, like it wasn't normal silence anymore. And that's when she said it. My father had arranged something. A mobile field police unit would come that evening around 6 p.m. while we were eating dinner. A GMC truck pulled up outside, and that's when things started feeling different. A group of mobile field police stepped down. They politely explained to my mother and the neighbors that they would set up a small fire, but by 10 p.m. curfew, everything would stop. Then they would spread out and secure the area. We ate faster than usual because we wanted to see them outside. They built a fire using stacked bricks. Firewood cracked loudly. A pot of porridge simmered over the flames. They sat in a circle. One played guitar. Others tapped rhythm with spoons, soft singing, quiet laughter, and alcohol being passed around. But something about it still didn't feel safe. Not completely. My mother only allowed us to watch through the window until 7 p.m. After that, she made us go inside, study, no arguments. Then bed early, no discussion. Her voice made it final. Before sleeping, she handed me milk and as a water bottle. I teased her slightly and asked, "Mom, why didn't you give us those 3 knives like yesterday?" And that's when I noticed it. Her expression changed instantly, like she already knew what I meant. She tapped my head and scolded me softly. She said neighbors believe chalk-drawn knives used for beetle chewing could scare ghosts. But she never expected something in this house would actually take those knives and place them right at the doorway, like it was warning her. She said tonight was different with armed police outside. We should finally sleep in peace. No more disturbances, at least. That was the hope, and strangely, that night, nothing happened. No ghost of Aunt T.U. Even the mosquito net wasn't torn. Everything felt normal. To normal, and that alone felt unsettling, because when everything is too quiet, you start expecting something. But I was wrong. The next morning, the squad leader rushed in to tell my mother what happened. During the night, whenever a soldier fell asleep, they felt something soft moving right beside them, and when they opened their eyes, there was a newborn baby, red, naked, lying right next to them, smiling, not crying, just staring in the dark, smiling like it belonged there. They panicked and fired warning shots into the air, and instantly the baby vanished. No sound, no trace, nothing at all. The worst area was the backyard unit. Around midnight, they couldn't take it anymore. They abandoned their post and ran to regroup with the front unit. But even there it followed them. Between 2 soldiers, it appeared again. A naked baby, sitting calmly, almost playful. No fear, no sound. Just there, between them, like it had always been there. And that's when it broke them. Fear took over completely. They couldn't stay anymore. They abandoned their positions and ran. They left the entire area behind. That morning, My mother asked me again if I had seen Aunt Tu. I laughed and said no. I even said something strange, that all the children slept deeply through the night without waking even once. I joked that maybe Aunt Tu was too busy following the soldiers outside to bother us. My mother gave a faint smile, but her eyes didn't fully relax. She said maybe that was better. At least whatever it was stayed outside the house. Then she remembered the night before, the torn mosquito net, and those 3 knives placed right in the middle of the walkway. And last night, for the first time, my mother said she actually felt strangely relieved hearing gunshots outside. That afternoon, after coming home from school and eating lunch, it was time for my nap. I lay on the divan in the back room, reading a funny book, My Family by Ryder Die Lamb. The divan was placed along the right wall of the back house, right beside a wide open door that stayed open all day, letting me see directly into the neighbor's garden, where a girl named Tuyen lived. I usually lay with my head toward the front of the house, facing the back so I could look straight into the garden. The breeze coming through the side door was cool, very cool, but after a while my back would get warm, so I kept shifting slightly left and right to stay comfortable. My right hand held the book, while my left hand hung loosely toward the floor, just swinging casually. Then my hand touched something soft. At first, I didn't even look down. My mother had just given birth a few months ago, so there were small pillows and baby cushions around the house. I thought one of them must have fallen onto the floor. I kept reading, absent-mindedly touching it like a soft cushion, gently squeezing it without thinking. But then it squeezed my hand back softly, intentionally. That's when I froze. I slowly tilted my head down and immediately snapped it back up, staring at the ceiling like I was trying to think. Or maybe like my mind just shut down completely, because what I saw was my hand resting on the stomach of a newborn baby, naked on the floor. And worse, the baby was holding my hand with both of its tiny hands. I didn't move, not even a breath. I just lay there completely frozen. I kept lying still, staring at my book like I was still reading, but my mind was racing. That morning, I had already heard about the police unit from last night, how those soldiers saw babies appearing beside them, and how they ran away in fear, but that was at night. This was midday, bright afternoon, and I was alone in a silent house with something holding my hand. The entire house was completely quiet, no voices, no movement. My mother and siblings were all asleep in the front house, only silence. I strained my ears, hoping to hear something normal. Nothing, just the wind outside, brushing through the leaves in the garden, making soft rustling sounds. I turned my eyes toward the neighbor's yard, hoping to see someone, anyone, but there was no one, just empty space. Shadows moving through leaves under the sunlight, shifting strangely like they were alive. Then I slowly looked down again, and my whole body went cold. The baby was still there, but now I could see its face clearly. And it wasn't just a baby, its body was that of a newborn. But its face looked older, much older. It smiled at me, revealing small white teeth, like a strange, wrong grin that didn't belong on a child. Its legs were curled tightly, like a newborn still used to being inside the womb. Its hands were gripping my hand with surprising strength. I stayed completely still, thinking fast. If I pulled my hand away, It might follow me. It might fall onto me, and that thought was worse than staying still. So I didn't move. I held my arm completely stiff, pretending nothing was happening. And then, after a moment, it stopped holding my hand. I don't know why, but I didn't wait to find out. The moment I thought it was gone, I moved. I didn't even run. I launched myself off the bed, across the floor, out the side door, through the neighbor's garden, and kept running. I didn't stop. I ran all the way around the house and entered back through the front door instead. When I ran back into the house, still breathing hard, my mother looked at me in shock and asked what had happened. I thought you were sleeping in the back. When did you go outside? And why are you running like that? I quickly told her about the baby ghost that grabbed my hand. The moment she heard it, her face turned pale. She stammered and said, "No, that's not a ghost. That's a demon. It showed itself in daylight and touched you." Then she grabbed my hand, asking if I was hurt. I said my hand was fine. Just then, Naum arrived with her son, about my age. My mother immediately made me repeat the story. Then she pulled that Nam to the back room to check if the baby spirit was still there. When they looked under the bed, they found a folding lounge chair. Aunt Nam casually said that was the chair Aunt Tu was lying on before she died. My mother told her to pull it out. Dark stains were scattered across the fabric. She asked what it was. Aunt Nam's son quickly answered, saying it was the blood Aunt Tu coughed up before she died. He said she kept complaining that someone was always choking her at night. My mother asked why they kept the chair. Aunt Nam hesitated and said it was still new, so she didn't want to throw it away. My mother scolded her, saying, "It's stained with blood. Why keep something like this?" She told them to take it to Aunt Tu's grave and burn it, and she would pay for a new one. Soon after, someone carried the chair to the cemetery. My mother told me to stay home and watch my siblings while she and Aunt Nam went to the grave to make offerings. Before leaving, my mother quietly told me that Aunt Tu was very spiritual and she had prayed for it not to bother the children anymore. She warned me that if I ever saw Aunt Tu again at night, I should never tease or call out to her, or she might send children's spirits to scare us. I had already seen ghosts at night before, but what I saw that afternoon, the newborn baby, made my skin crawl like never before. So I told myself I shouldn't mess with Aunt Tu anymore. Otherwise, she might send a whole group of ghost children into my mosquito net. And what if one of them suddenly tried to cling to me, or worse, asked to be fed? That thought alone was terrifying. That evening, around 6 p.m., another mobile field police unit arrived in front of our house. Just like before, they set up a fire, cooked a large pot of porridge, and played music while joking around. But as night fell and we were drifting to sleep, sudden gunfire erupted from the front yard, waking everyone up. We looked outside and saw the soldiers pointing their guns toward a large mango tree. My mother knocked on the door, and one officer came over. She asked what was happening. He said the porridge they had cooked was gone. They found it later, placed on top of the mango tree. Hot boiling food, lifted up there. No one could explain it. He said it would take multiple men to carry something like that, and even then it would be impossible without spilling it. No human could have done it. so they fired warning shots into the tree, believing it had to be something unnatural. After that, the night became quiet again. We slept peacefully. No crying from the children, no strange sounds. The mosquito net stayed intact, but the next morning, Aunt Nam whispered to my mother that the soldiers were actually terrified. She said after midnight, they quietly put out their fire and left without warning, abandoning the porridge still sitting in the mango tree. Then she laughed and said she told her son he should climb up and bring it down to eat. That afternoon, my father finally came home, and for the first time the whole family rushed forward and hugged him like we had been waiting too long. Even his two friends who came with him looked surprised. They laughed and said, "Wow, your house is really happy." My mother felt a little embarrassed and quickly said, honestly, "I've never seen anything like this in my life. Something is haunting this house. It shows itself in broad daylight, even scaring my oldest son." Her voice was shaking slightly when she said it. One of the visitors reached into his bag and pulled out two horseshoes. He said, "I've heard stories about this place. Since you just moved from Saigon, you probably don't know. Let me nail these up on your door frame to protect the house." After they hung the horseshoes, they stayed for a short drink with my father, then left. That night we slept better than ever. No one woke up asking for water. No disturbances. Even I slept deeply, only waking up a few times, glancing toward the kitchen. And strangely, I didn't see Aunt T.U., no baby ghost, nothing, just silence. After a few times waking up and seeing nothing unusual, I finally relaxed and slept straight through until morning. But at breakfast the next day, my mother said something shocking. "Do you know? Your father fought ghosts all night." We all froze. Then we started asking him excitedly. My father just smiled and didn't answer. So my mother continued. "I woke up and saw him stepping out of the mosquito net, punching and kicking the air around the bed. I called him, but he didn't respond. He just kept fighting something invisible. So I knew he was fighting ghosts. I stopped calling him and let him continue." She said he went back into bed, then got up again and kept fighting. He did this several times throughout the night. Then she turned to him and asked, "So what did you see?" My father stayed silent for a moment, then said calmly, "Yes, I saw them. They came and tried to force us out of this house. I shouted at them, and they attacked me. So I fought back." Then he added, "But tomorrow, I think we should ask the police to help us find another house. We can't stay here." We were all shocked. Leave the house. We didn't want to lose the garden behind it. My mother asked again, "You've only been back one night, and you already want to leave. Did you lose to them?" My father laughed. "Lose? No, I fought them off the whole night. They ran every time I chased them." Then his expression changed slightly. But when I tried to light a cigarette, the flame kept going out. Every time I brought the lighter close, the fire disappeared. When I pulled it away, it came back. He looked down and said, "That's when I told them, if you're powerful enough to do that, then I give up. I'll move out tomorrow. I won't disturb you anymore." And just like that, our family quietly moved out of the haunted house after only 9 days there.